on the mountain of your own free will. And you're zipping in a flash on a daring dash down a waterfall so rapid that your ghost split splash. Splash Mountain.
Boom, 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 boom!
Yeah.
Welcome to the Bombadcast.
What is up, Bombad fam? This is your boy, the Cannon Junkie. We are here on another lovely Bombad Thursday, and man, have we got a fantastic show for you. We have a lot going on, but before we get into that, guys, welcome to the Bombadcast YouTube channel, where we have, guys, you can catch my show, my other show, Hyperfocus, on Mondays, where I sit down with just any guest. We talk about anything under the sun, whatever they're hyper-focused on. It doesn't even have to be about Star Wars. It's incredible. You have Scotty's Bombad Gaming on Wednesdays. Oh, guys, you got to, like, we had, like, Eric was on this week. It was fantastic. I hope you were there. I hope you got to see it. If not, you got to catch up with all our stuff. We've got a lot of stuff going on, but we are here on Bombad Thursday. So let's get into that. And before we go any further, I have to bring in my Bombad buddy, my co-host, the love of my life? Sure. The Scotty J-Ro. Sir, come on in.
Hey, Gerald.
How are you doing?
Dude, I'm doing great.
Good.
We've got a family trip next week, so I don't know if Bombad. Well, I don't know if I'll be on hiatus. We're trying to figure that out right now.
We're trying to figure out what to do. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But with that being said, I'm excited to be here. Bombad Gaming was a blast yesterday. We played Lego Star Wars. Gotta go check it out. Me and Eric.
Always so much fun. Lovely.
We played through Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, and we're going to be doing rest of Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith when we get back. So it is going to be a fantastic time. But speaking of the Phantom Menace, we have a guest on. Okay, we have a guest. And our guest is such a charming man. We talked about so many things before the show, from the Men in Black to Dave Filoni lookalikes and everything in between that. Whatever you can
all
assume
the conspiracies, all of the conspiracies, including Dave Filoni lookalikes. Exactly.
So, needless to say, I'm going to bring in our guest, Peter Townley. Peter, how are you doing, bud? You doing okay?
Hey, I'm doing good, guys.
Great. God, Peter, it's so nice seeing you. Man, this is fantastic. And we warned Peter before the show. We said we have some clips that we're going to show, throughout the episode. And Peter, every guest gets an inaugural Paul Stanley video. Are you ready for yours?
Yes.
Here we go. And this is Paul Stanley is my neighbor. He may show up at some point. He can show up that door anytime at any point. It always gets fun when Paul shows up. But he asked me to show this to the guest. So here's this for you, Peter.
This is your wake-up call. Time to reach, go for it all. Vulture stirs inside of me, and I know what I can be. Limit is the sky. Hey world, watch me fly. The best part of waking up is vultures in your cup.
Oh,
I'm so confused.
It really.
Why?
That one.
when you have a cup of coffee, the first thing the first thing I think about is Paul Stanley and the circus. That is 100% what I think of when I have a cup of coffee in the morning.
Oh my god!
And the thing that really got me was they threw in his signature at the end. Like, why do you throw the written signature on the end of the ad?
Because then the
You can
commercial's
trace
worth
it.
more. You can sell it on eBay for a little more. Right?
They knew about NFTs long before.
Yes.
Long before that was going to happen. Yeah.
If there was an NFT on this
'90s,
commercial-
late '80s, when is that? What era?
I can tell you
Folgers
this
and Paul
much.
Stanley is that?
Peter, I know you're an actor. What would you guess the budget for that would have been?
Oh, that commercial has probably an insane budget. Like, that's ridiculous amounts of money. If it's a commercial that has Paul Stanley in it, there's going to be this whole massive thing happening just so that, like, he doesn't feel like as though he's the butt of the joke or something.
What, you know, it's
Well,
just
they even had to pay for the special effects to make him disappear at the end, which makes no sense in and of itself. Like, was he a ghost at the circus? Is he a ghost, the husband of the trapeze artist? Did he fall? What happened? I don't understand what's going on there.
The pitch room I'm thinking about now too is these guys sitting around going, okay, so the Taster's Choice commercials. You know, they had this whole kind of series going on with the couple, and are they or aren't they? What are you thinking, Gene? I'm thinking what we need is circus performers and someone really relevant, like Paul Stanley.
Oh man, I'm telling you, you know, the Unplugged, you know, series on MTV just really helped everyone's career, and I think this may have been the case for Paul. I don't know. It just seems like it. There's no way he would have gotten this. I mean, has to be 90s.
How do you do a circus thing and not have him in the makeup?
That is weird too.
You know?
Or like
Yeah,
at least up on the platform of the trapeze.
Yeah.
I think that's how you must have gotten to the circus in the first place. Is it's just like, well, the face makeup, the circus, it's all there, and then you find out there's all these fucking contracts and IP.
Yeah.
And if I wear the makeup, Gene Simmons has to get a cut of it. So
right.
I wonder if Gene was supposed to be there, but they're like, oh no, Gene's sick, and we only have Paul for this one day because they're touring around Japan. Like, oh, what are we gonna do? We got to just put Paul in there. And it's a spin that gets me, and he just disappears into the.
I love the best part of waking up, like that.
Also the way he holds his coffee
He
is so
man. He gets
wonderful. He's like, this is your
the two-handed grip on the coffee is really mystifying too.
He is like he is like a white woman with a maple latte. Or something. It's like
maple. Oh man, I would
pumpkin
say
spice. There we go.
I would say that commercials was as weird as the movie we're about to discuss. Wouldn't y'all say, gentlemen? Isn't it kind of like? I mean,
it's just as mysterious.
As mysterious, right?
Yeah, mysterious. An element of what were they thinking? Some weird commercial tie-ins. Like it's all some special effects. It's all there.
Yeah, it's all there. Literally, maybe George directed this and wrote this. I don't know. That could be.
I'm starting to feel bad for Paul. I'm sorry. Like that Gene ditched him here. Like, oh my gosh.
And that's why Paul made Folgers commercials. But
yes.
Look, Peter. We have this question for every guest, and I'm eager to hear your answer. We do this for each one of them, and it's something called Best, Favorite, Most Fun. Because I've always been a strict believer that Star Wars, yes, you can say this is the best, but it's all your opinion anyway. And then you have your favorite, and then you have your most fun Star Wars. And Jerry, do you want to do yours as an example before we let Peter go and do his, or would you want me to do it?
Sure.
'Cause I got mine.
Here we go.
Okay, mine. Oh, you or me?
Oh, okay. Well, let's go at the same time. 1, 2, 3, go.
Okay,
I'm
best.
just kidding. You go first.
The best Star Wars to me, I don't know why I always said Return of the Jedi. It just got everything I like about it. My favorite is The Phantom Menace, and the most fun is Solo. So that's where I'm at. That's where I'm at now. Jerry, you want to do yours, and then we'll let Peter do his?
Okay.
Give him some time to think. Don't want to stress him out.
I think I think I'm gonna go with Empire as the best. Very, very white bread, very vanilla.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna go. Ooh, big. The pressure is on. Okay. Then my favorite, I think, is still TLJ.
Yeah.
And the most fun, I might go Phantom Menace tonight. It changes every time we do this. It changes a little bit.
Yeah.
Just because I was rewatching it today, just so I had it fresh in my mind before we got here, and it's a nice movie to have. It's a nice movie to have in the background, but there's just a lot of fun little sequences happening and stuff. So yeah, no, I don't know. I guess that's the way I would go with it. So
okay,
Pete, what about you, buddy? What's your best, favorite, most fun?
My favorite Star Wars movie is the first one, Star Wars 1977. Right. I think the best Star Wars movie is also that movie.
Okay.
And the most fun Star Wars is the episode of The Mandalorian where the Jawas pick his ship, and he has to try to Wile E. Coyote his way onto a sand crawler.
Yes,
that counts.
That is really, really fun.
Suka. It's the greatest.
Yeah. That's a great. We've never gotten an episode, and we're very loose with it. We don't have strict rules or anything. So I love that. I love that. That's the first time we've ever gotten an episode of The Mandalorian, I think, as someone's answer for the most fun. But right.
but it does work.
Well, the whole he's like Adam West's Batman, on the side of that thing for a little bit.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and of course that's honestly the first one well, obviously we didn't have that many episodes, but I mean that's when that show changed for me. The Grogu review was incredible, but that episode when Grogu could use the Force, that one I was like, oh my god, this show is going to do it. This show's going in a way I totally didn't expect. So it's pretty exciting stuff. But Peter, we have you on for a particular reason. As you can see in the title and as the thumb as well, we're having you on to talk about this thing right here, okay? And I think one of the best posters of all time. I will say that, and I 100% mean that poster is incredible. But Peter, okay, we want to talk about this movie called The Phantom Menace. You heard of it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah? You like it?
Little independent film.
Yeah, I do. I spent about 10 years sincerely despising it. And I spent about 10 years ironically liking it too much. And now I don't know. And now it's I think I like it, but I don't like it in the way that I like most other movies or even other Star Wars movies.
Okay.
It's a really curious film. It's not any they never the rest of the prequels were nothing like it. It's they tried doing things a certain way in Phantom Menace and got a very strange result, and then didn't do it that way again. Maybe. It's such an odd duck.
It really is.
It's a movie that's for children. But to understand what's going on in the plot, you need to at least have gotten a B in AP US History your junior year.
I was about to say, you have to be college educated. You really do.
To understand the opening crawl, you need to have really been paying attention in Mr. Anderson's class.
See, that's the only one I've memorized, too. Turmoil has engulfed the Galactic Republic. The taxation and trade routes to outlying star systems are in dispute. Hoping to resolve the matter.
See, there you go.
Literally.
Right off the bat, it's hitting you with it. But the thing is that if you go through the crawl line by line and word by word, you really know what's going on in the movie. It's just that's really hard to do as you're watching it going, Star Wars is about economics now?
yeah. But there's something charming. And you're like you said, I spent a while not really enjoying that movie. And then I grew up really enjoying it. And then, I don't know, it's just one of those, right? You ironically think it's great. And then all of a sudden you're sitting there there is something really deep to this. And I can't quite figure out why I like it as much as I do. But I think also a lot of it has to do with the fact that we've got like, you know, really, really good marketing for that. And I don't know everyone's age when they saw it. I was 5 when it came out, so I was really young. But like that has enough to like, you know, be ingrained into your memory. Jerry, how old were you when it came out?
I was 12. I was right in the sweet spot right there. 12 years old. So prime Phantom Menace age. I remember all of the promotions and everything.
Me too.
Even like I remember like even in the candy aisle you would go, and I mean I didn't see too many of the Jar Jar tongue suckers. Yeah, which probably a good thing. I probably, you know, who knows? Maybe a bad thing. I don't know. But I remember like they used to have, I think, scenes. I think they did this for the Phantom Menace. I don't know if you guys remember on Crunch Bars.
No way.
Like they used to like carve scenes from movies or characters from movies on Crunch
Bars. That's amazing. I remember the Crunch Bar thing, but I don't remember being Star Wars. I'm gonna look that up in a minute.
I feel like they did. Maybe I might be mixing it up with something else. I don't know.
Sure.
I was a child
Peter,
in the 90s though.
Where were you at in terms of your growth? How old were you?
I was in college.
Oh wow. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, and I went to go see it with my friends. In Santa Barbara, California.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Kind of when all that was being made, too. I know a lot of it was made in England. A lot of it was made in California and Australia. But that must have been a while of time. Man, so it's so funny. I'm used to the answers of, like, Jerry and I between the ages of, like, 5 and 15. But being, like, a college student, what the hell was that
I had
like?
a very different experience seeing Star Wars than you guys did.
Yes.
Just because, I had more like knowledge of the world, and so there were things that I was probably catching about the movie that you guys weren't at the time, you know.
Yeah. Right. What about the marketing though? Was it like I know from my experience it was everywhere. I know from Jerry, but I couldn't imagine being in a populated place like California. I'd imagine it was like maybe 10 times worse than it was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's where I'm from.
I mean, you go into any store, and it's just it was just all of that. Film was really like aggressively marketed. Mm-hmm. It was marketed probably a little too much because that stuff was really weird.
Well, the part of that too probably led to the overall disappointment, right? I mean, it was everywhere. It was like, man, I have to see this movie. I've walked past the Jordica cardboard cutout enough times in the Winn-Dixie to where I have to go see this movie now.
I went and I bought the Darth Maul 3D Doritos. I mean, I'm ready. I've got to go.
But that's what led to, I guess, I don't know, at least Jerry and I's little generation to like fall in love with it because it was everywhere, right? And the prequels are everywhere for us too. But like growing up with
chains,
literally
had were marketing it at the same time. Mm-hmm. I've never seen that since, or even before. Like it was massive.
It's just crazy to me. Like they had the pizza boxes and everything. I remember that. I remember the Taco Bell. Like I remember I think there was a Jar Jar or a Watto in my local Taco Bell, which just sounds insane, like a statue. And I'm like, this is almost godlike. This is almost like Christianity, but like in fast food restaurants. But yeah, I think it's got something really, really interesting to it because the marketing maybe is what forced me to like it. But what was your first viewing experience like, Pete? Like, did y'all leave gung-ho, or y'all like, what the hell?
No, it was extremely quiet. It was a very, very quiet car ride home because we were all very confused about what we just saw.
Oh, that's weird. That's wild. Like, really, like it was like you just got back in the car together and it was just like dead silence.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I mean, we went to see it like at 10 in the morning the day after it opened. So there wasn't a crowd at the theater. There was like maybe 20 other people in the theater at the same time. So there wasn't the experience because I've seen, I've seen a couple of Star Wars movies on their opening night. And there's this crowd participation thing that happens and you like the movie more because of that. And when you go see a movie and there's absolutely no one else in the theater for the most part, and it's the Phantom Menace, it's strange. Because
That
no one's
was-
cheering or clapping
I-
during the movie. It's just like, huh.
So I was talking before. I think it was before this about how I showed my ex, right, that one first. We went to see the 3D version
great.
right before 2015 or whatever, or right in 2015. I think it was just us. It was us and like maybe 2 other people in the theater for that. Granted, it was the middle of the day, but still, just you think like a Star Wars movie back in theaters, 3D and stuff, and just oh, okay, well, got the theater to ourselves and stuff like that. So that's the experience. It really you've got a good point, Peter, about like the communal experience is like. That's 100%. That's like most of the reason why you go to a movie theater to watch like the big movies and stuff. Is you want to have that. I want to get excited with the people with me, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I could see it being like really strange, like just kind of being like, oh hey, all right, well, I guess it's
like people
just
that
us.
listen to Dark Side of the Moon and watch movies at the same exact time. Like that's just kind of what that reminds me of. Maybe the Phantom Menace would be good for that reason. But I guess
anyone
I
ever
don't
done
know.
it? Surely.
What? The Phantom Menace? I don't know. I'm gonna do that tonight though. I'm gonna do that tonight.
There you go.
I'm gonna indulge and then
There's your evening
watch listen to Dark Side and watch the Phantom Menace. Maybe there'll be something. Maybe there's some tie-ins. We'll see. I don't know. But yeah, that's an interesting thing, I guess to me as a kid, I remember leaving it, loving it, and playing the pod racing game at home and, having the opportunity to see it a couple of times in the theaters. But I think it was really marketed more towards kids. And I think that might be part of it. It might be part of the hardest, thing to swallow with this movie is Jar Jar, I would say, for most people. And, as or as most people have seen, Jar Jar is our official mascot of this show. But
Official,
was Jar Jar like, what was it like for you, Peter? Him as a character.
It was, Jar Jar was like this crazy technical achievement because this was not a guy in a rubber suit. This was like a fully CGI character, and that was kind of amazing. And the thing is that it was so good that you just kind of took it for real, and people just sort of engaged with the character directly and had people responded to Jar Jar the way that they do to just an actual actor being there. Like you don't get Gollum in Lord of the Rings if you don't have Jar Jar first. You don't have
exactly, which
is just and that's also the other confusing thing about it is that the critical reception of Jar Jar was also not good, and Ahmed Best did nothing wrong. He absolutely did nothing wrong, but people kind of came after him in this really strange way.
Yeah.
Because they identified him so, and his performance was so convincing that they just identified him so well with the character. And it's such a mess because they started comparing his performance to African-American actors in vaudeville and early Hollywood, who were doing very stereotypical type of characters.
Sure.
And they, it's like, and they made the same mistake with Ahmed, is that they attacked the person who is just making their living as an actor. They specifically likened him to a guy who had the stage name of Step and Fetch It. They didn't even use the actor's real name, and to my embarrassment, I can't remember it right now. But in the same way, they were attacking the person as if the stereotype was their idea.
Wow.
It's absolutely not. Ahmed Best didn't come up with it.
Of course.
You know, 22 years old. He's trying to please the guy who came up with the character.
And literally, I was going to say
he's
that.
Excited
and
to be a part of it.
Yes.
Who all gets to say they've been a part of Star Wars?
They also accused him of being an Afro-Caribbean stereotype when that is Ahmed Best's background.
Literally,
and he said that's not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And people just kept saying it anyway.
Yeah. And another thing too, if you think about it, the idea that it's all George, right? It's all George to begin with. So like, who do you pinpoint as being the problem there? You know, it's Ahmed seeking approval from George. Like, hey, is it okay if he walks this way? If it's okay if he talks this way, right? And that's George, you know, being so, because George is pretty chill. I mean, he's kind of he's pretty relaxed when it comes to his actors. He's like, yeah, that's great, go do that, you know. And so part of it kind of boils down to George maybe not being more aware if it is portraying something negatively, which I don't think it is, but he was just designed for kids.
It was more, well, and even George had said, like this comment right here, you know, it's, and someone earlier mentioned Chaplin. Like he's supposed to be like that era of comedy is what he was supposed to be like evoking and everything, right? The very physical, the very just like
well, also, you know, if you think about it, the Phantom Menace is, you know, art direction. Our direction is very Art Deco. It's very much to the 1920s and 30s because it's the time before war. It's like the wonderful, we're living in like really awesome 1920s America, but early 1900s America before, you know, anything got really bad in terms of you know, I guess you could say World War I or any.
Well, before, like it was like after World War I, right? The 1920s and everything, and then you had everything just go to hell in World War II. And everything, you know. I mean, it was just absolutely, it's.
Well, before World War II, you had a major economic crisis, which is
that's true.
In a way, what the Phantom Menace is about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Trade problems.
Boy, Star Wars just is it's not about that real world stuff though, right? Like, you know?
Well, I mean, because this is the weird paradox of the Phantom Menace too, because by and large, Star Wars is not concerned with details, fine details on things. And my favorite example of that is Han Solo saying she's the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. Now, Star Wars fans, mostly being nerds, know that technically this is not correct because parsec is a unit of distance. But Star Wars doesn't care about that. All that you need to know is ship go fast. And we're moving on. And luckily, no one ever made an entire movie to explain that one sentence existing, so we don't have to worry about it
anymore. You know, and that also makes me think of this too. This movie was purely of George Lucas's mind. Like, this was the very first Star Wars, and I don't know if any of my younger viewers, because I'm a teacher, Peter, and I have some of my students join me, but I got to say this. The Phantom Menace is like the biggest independent film of all time because George privately funded pretty much the whole thing. He only gave distribution to Fox. That's it. Like, everything is made in-house. And like Rick McCallum, I love him to death, but he did tell George yes on literally everything. Everything. Yeah,
it's like you can really look at the Phantom Menace as an auteur film.
Yes, it really
in a way that you can't with any other Star Wars movie.
It was all yes. There was no no's at all. And the fact that, you know, the visual effects were so groundbreaking. And even to this day, when I watch the pod race scene, I am blown away. I'm like, how did they do this in 1997?
It still looks good. Like, I know the droids and everything too. Again, I was watching today on Disney Plus on my giant TV, you know, and it's like it all looks still so it holds up for me. I mean, it may not be as good as it once was, but it still looks pretty good, pretty darn good for the time.
The only thing that looks bad is Jar Jar walking. I think that's it looks like he's sliding. That's the only thing I notice now. But like overall, like some of the stuff looks killer, and a part of it's just, you know, George pushing the boundaries. If we wouldn't have Lord of the Rings or anything Marvel or anything, you know, that was a huge budget film if it wasn't for the Phantom Menace doing as well as it did and kind of groundbreaking so many different areas of filmmaking. It's just
I like that. Yeah, fantastic.
Thanks, Rick. That's just what I needed. Rick, that boost. Oh man, do you have a favorite sequence, Peter, from the Phantom Menace? Is there anything like really stands out to you? Here we go.
It's the thing that really stands out to me in the Phantom Menace is weirdly the opening crawl of the film.
Oh, let's hear it.
Because like for example, if you take my favorite Star Wars movie, Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
The things that the things in the opening crawl set up the events of the movie. Here's what happened: some plans for the big bad thing got stolen. It's real easy to wrap your head around. Okay, and the bad guys are after the plans. It sets everything up to eventually blow up the bad thing at the end of the movie. So the crawl directly relates to it. And the Phantom Menace, it's not really like that at all, because no one at the end of the movie has resolved the trade dispute.
That's true.
They resolved it with the back of their hand.
Yeah, the Phantom Menace is like you were saying. What is the story of the Phantom Menace? And really, the Phantom Menace is about its world building. It's not really like George Lucas. I kind of think of him sometimes as being like a weird indie art film guy who accidentally became a Hollywood mogul.
That's true.
Because his movies are he's very interested in technically how films get made, the techniques of filmmaking.
Mm-hmm.
What are the possibilities of what you can do, with a camera? I feel like in the Phantom Menace is a case of this in a way that he's more interested in the technical aspects of the film, mm-hmm. and building the world of the film, and the other parts of it he may not be as interested in.
Yeah.
The characters are not as well developed.
Mm-hmm.
The plot is more about setting the stage than it is actually executing a storyline. That type of stuff. It's like THX 1138 is it's very dense on its world building. It's creating this completely other place, another experience that you can feel like you're in, and it's a relatively simple story. And George Lucas loves dystopias. That's
sure
the authoritarian dystopia in THX.
Right.
American Graffiti is the dystopia of early '60s Modesto.
Mm-hmm.
The Star Wars films, which are taking place again in an authoritarian regime.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Phantom Menace, which is this depiction of a democracy that has already crumbled, that's just about to fall. And the movie is dedicated to you knowing what that world is like more than it is anything else.
That's true. I didn't think about that. And another connection I made in my head is the fact that with the prequels we get what came before the big downfall. Like, how did these people oppress people, or how do these people become oppressed, in episodes 4, 5, and 6? Why do they have to stand up? Because the Phantom Menace, you get, beautiful places like Naboo. You get Coruscant, which are all beautiful places, and we kind of didn't get anything beautiful until, or ever, in A New Hope, or any of the original trilogy, except for Bespin. But, that was obviously a front, and that's evident in the plotline of that movie. But here we are, sitting there.
Naboo is kind of a front too.
Yeah, exactly, because we know that it's all aristocratic. It's all,
Yeah, when you first get to Naboo, you see the planet. Mm-hmm. There's no resource extraction. It's like a huge park with a city that must have been very, very expensive to build, with very affluent-looking people running around. It's like Andorra or someplace like that.
Yeah,
like a European principality. And then you discover that the indigenous population has been literally driven off of the surface by these people.
Mm-hmm.
And the Republic is like, cool, yeah, we're good with that. That's fine. That's fine.
Well, in my notes, too, I mentioned symbiotic relationships, and a lot of the story is about symbiotic relationships either being good or bad. The introduction of midi-chlorians, right? But also the fact that a bad symbiotic relationship, a parasitic, if you will, is the fact that, you've got Gungans living underwater, suppressed to their little area, and then you've got, like you said, the Naboo people are living on land, everything's going great, and they live in heaven. But it's a really good point. I hadn't thought about it from that way before.
They really bring that out. I put Chris's comment up here a little bit ago. The EK's books about about Padme, essentially, like Queen's Peril, all of that. That really gets into how it was very like they were pushing them under the surface. They were like, okay, we are the affluent people, and you guys, this is our planet. This is our planet. We'll see you. You guys can stay over there and stuff. So yeah, they really kind of.
That's one of the things that's really messed up when Qui-Gon says to Jar Jar, the ability to speak doesn't make you intelligent. It's like, dude, he learned your language. He's speaking it right now, and you're insulting him. The language he's speaking, by the way, he has to speak because your people came to this planet and kicked him and all of his family under the ocean.
Right.
That's wild. I haven't thought about it from that perspective either. And it comes down to the fact that, like, that's why I like doing this show, is you hear all these different opinions, especially that one. That's a good point. You just, that kind of got me going. That my brain's going somewhere with that. That's pretty badass.
I mean, one of the things that is kind of bewildering about the prequels is that in the original trilogy, when you run into aliens, they don't work for the Empire. The Empire is completely dominated by its dominant culture, which is human beings. Aliens are in, like, as it says in the Crawl of the Phantom Menace, the outlying systems. And they're speaking their own languages. They don't speak English because they're not in the core areas.
Yeah.
Whereas in the prequels, the aliens are speaking English because this republic is basically a colonial empire.
Yes.
And you have to speak English to do business. So the Trade Federation does, the Gungans do, all of the aliens
call it
on
basic,
Tatooine
right?
do.
Like it's the basic you have to learn. You have to know this language.
Yeah. And then you get into the really sticky thing, which is accents. Jar Jar speaks in something that sounds like it might be some kind of African or African diaspora patois. The Trade Federation, in addition to wearing stuff that sort of look like the Han Fu, the Chinese imperial court garments, they are also speaking with what sounds like a very hacky English as a second language, Asian immigrant accent. And it was such a jarring thing to have that in Star Wars. That was probably a lot of the reason for the silence on the car ride on the way back, because the person who broke the silence was my friend Mike. The first thing that was said after we saw the movie was about 50 minutes after we'd been in the car and we're driving back to Isla Vista.
Wow.
And Mike said, I wasn't expecting there to be racial stereotypes in Star Wars. Mike is Jewish Italian. He said, I don't know which half of me is mad about the car mechanic guy.
Watto is the most questionable. I think Watto to me is like, where I'm like, okay, he's got like all these little features that I'm like, this seems a little anti-Semitic. Like there's the way that I think about it sometimes is that, everything gets in. Our brains are these amazing sponges for all of the information around us. Sure.
Whether it's stuff we like or not, whether it's things we agree with or not, whether it's good or bad, etc. It all gets in. My brain heard every horrible thing anyone's ever said, and I can't do anything about that. What I can do is control what comes out. And we can run into a tricky place in the arts because we are often encouraged to do pure expression, to be just as uncensored as possible and let it all out. But sometimes, like, the stuff you let out may not necessarily be great. Some of it might be regrettable. Some things that, because you didn't really examine them with somebody else's eyes, because George wasn't. He was just sort of approving everything. Like in the case of Jar Jar, the character that George Lucas says he based it on was Goofy, a Disney character.
Yeah.
And if you go back and look at Goofy, he's a caricature. He's a very unflattering caricature of rural Americans.
That's true.
And not the guy who invented Goofy, but the guy who kind of developed the character of Goofy later. He used to give lectures to the animators so that they would understand the character, what he was like, what he was about. And they ended up publishing those later in like how to draw books that were sold at Disneyland in like the 50s, I think. And so him talking about Goofy is preserved. And in describing Goofy, he actually uses the N-word.
Wow.
Yeah, not only to, the people who are drawing Goofy, but also as something that you could buy at Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
Oddly enough, when you go to Wikipedia and it's quoting him, that word is removed because the Wikipedia article is quoting a book that sources that speech and changed the word.
Yeah.
Be careful about that's that. Be careful about Wikipedia thing because you kind of got to go back and look and find out. It's so that history with Goofy is there, and that getting into Jar Jar added up with this kind of vague sounding accent, some body language that reminded people of like minstrel performances. Enough things were there that it's not that anyone had the intention of doing something that evoked racial stereotypes about African Americans,
right?
But something about that got through.
Yeah. Like you said, your brain takes it all in.
When it's in the genesis of the character, even, like you said with Goofy and everything, of course something will get through if that's what you're basing it on, right? So
yeah, and I mean, like, science fiction also has a lot of anti-Asian, especially like anti-Chinese stuff running through it. Like back in the early 1900s, after the East India Trading Company, which is kind of the real world equivalent of the Trade Federation.
I was going to say that. That's exactly what I was thinking.
They were a mercantile concern. They governed India, and they had their own military. And they basically ran all of Britain's territory east of the Cape of Good Hope.
Yeah.
And they had been smuggling opium into China where it was illegal. And some British merchants got caught doing this. And the Chinese seized it. Someone from the Navy came out, paid off the merchants, and said to the Chinese, keep the opium. But what happened next is that the English considered this financial loss to be a casus belli. They said, this gives us the justification to attack. So this is what the Opium Wars were. It was Europe just kicking the crap out of Imperial China because China wasn't playing by the rules that they made up.
That's a big parallel. I haven't thought about that.
Yeah, and this is what the Trade Federation is doing in Naboo. They don't like the way that the tariffs are going, and so a blockade is an act of war. So they're waging war on Naboo to get Naboo to sign a treaty later that is going to justify their actions, which is how the Opium War ended. The British got the Chinese to sign a treaty that made them pay back all the expenses of fighting the war, plus giving them Hong Kong, plus giving them control of several other ports and favorable trade deals and stuff like that.
Yeah.
This is probably what the Trade Federation is doing in Naboo. They're just stalling until they can get the Naboo to sign a treaty that says, yeah, we're sorry, everything's okay now.
Well, then you
can get all your money back. But what happens after the Opium Wars is all these Chinese immigrants start coming to the United States and England and other places because slavery is illegal now, and you have to find a new source of cheap exploitable labor. So you pay people very little who are in a lot of economic desperation, which is how you get a lot of people from the Indian subcontinent, Chinese immigrants at that time. And then people start having all this anxiety in the Western world about, oh God, there's all these immigrants coming here. you know, it's a threat. It's a threat to our way of life. And this thing called the yellow peril emerges in the public consciousness.
I've heard about this.
And yeah, and it's political. It's like politically, there were world leaders at the time. I think Kaiser Wilhelm of Germany was the one who called it the yellow peril first. But a lot of world leaders were really into this idea of, oh man, the lesser non-white races are going to come in, and it's going to make things worse. And also that there might be an insidious plot to do so. And this is the idea that gets rolling in science fiction. There's this guy, I don't remember his real name. His pen name was Sax Romer, which is sort of like if someone on the internet was posting fan fiction, they called themselves like Katana Ronin or something. It was this really cringy pen name.
Yeah.
And he invented this character called Dr. Fu Manchu. And Dr. Fu Manchu was this evil Chinese mastermind who was trying to bring down the Western world. And of course, the hero who brought him down was a British military officer in colonial India. But Fu Manchu, his author literally called him the Yellow Peril incarnate. The Fu Manchu books were incredibly popular. The films that were made on it were also very popular. Boris Karloff played him. Christopher Lee played him. And this figure of, we call the mustache. We named the mustache after the character.
Yeah.
You know, and so there was this very strong, like, anti-Chinese villain figure that was introduced. There was also H.G. Wells wrote this book called The War in the Air. He wrote this before World War I, and the book predicts that Germany will start a world war that engulfs all of Europe and the United States, and it will weaken the Western powers so much that China, who has developed in secret superior air power, just sweeps over the globe. And then there was another story that was based on that. It's called like Earth 2049 or Armageddon 2049 or something. And it's the same idea that that Chinese air power has taken over the United States. And in the book, this guy whose name is like Adam Rogers, I think, is frozen from the 20th century and wakes up in the future and becomes a part of this like underground movement. Well, this book is popular and it gets eventually adapted for film. They changed the name of the character to Buck Rogers.
What to say? And
they remove it being on Earth. They say it's going to all be in space. But the villain ends up being this guy, Ming the Merciless.
Yep.
Who is very much a Dr. Fu Manchu type of character.
Yes.
And he's an emperor named Ming, you know?
Yeah.
So it's kind of
telegraphed.
the evil Chinese mastermind kind of still finds his way into something, even though they took that stuff out of the source material, it came back.
Right.
And Buck Rogers was a major inspiration for Flash Gordon, which is the one with Ming the Merciless. I'm sorry about that.
Right.
But actually, I think Buster Crabbe, this old actor, I think he might have played both characters. But yeah, Flash Gordon was the thing that George Lucas originally wanted to do.
Yes.
And when he couldn't get the rights, he did Star Wars. And thank God he did. He didn't get the rights, because otherwise we wouldn't have had the Dino De Laurentiis Star Wars.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's sorry, the Dino De Laurentiis Flash Gordon, the one that Queen.
Right. I know what you meant.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the Trade Federation, are also descended from that. It's just the interesting thing is that Lucas also talked about Ming the Merciless being like his inspiration for the Emperor. Star Wars literally has an Emperor, but he took out, he removed like all of like anything that looked like real world Earth cultural context. He filed off the numbers really well, and he got just inspired by the idea of it, And with the Trade Federation, maybe it's just this pure expression thing to where all of these other elements come in. It's just like, yeah, this seems right, but like various parts of some problematic source material kind of gets piled in, and
Yeah.
and the result that you have is something that looks very much like Dr. Fu Manchu, something that looks very much like something that was directly based on racist anxiety.
Yeah. Well, also the kabuki art style of Padme Amidala, like that's also something else that you could think about in terms of like pulling from that Eastern culture, right? And then you've also got really interesting things like slavery on Tatooine, where slavery doesn't exist anywhere else.
Yeah,
but
like,
Padme who's dressing and has this really beautiful ornate lifestyle goes to Tatooine to like, what the hell? There's slaves here, and like it just shows how blind and confused the Republic is at their reaches, because they don't reach that far. And that's real life. I mean, like my favorite. I mean, you saw it, the episode of The Mandalorian. Whenever would they have Mayfield? Where what's the actor's name? His character. Yes.
Yeah.
Whenever he's talking about these people don't care. I mean, we are just people that are invading their land. We are just showing up and leaving. We're taking their stuff. They don't care what's happening. They don't care about the Republic.
Yeah, it's not Empire or Rebels doesn't matter to them. It's just another boot.
See, that's what the original trilogy, I think, kind of lacked, whereas the prequel trilogy kind of took those really weird themes and put them in there, right? And I don't know, Tatooine's a big, interesting area because this literally, and I always find this funny, the Messiah has to erase a thing for his freedom. There's something so bizarre about that to me. This godlike character has to literally beat an asshole at a race to be able to be liberated. There's just like... There's so much to that that's just so weird, and he builds a 3PO that takes care of his mom. It's just that's odd. That's really odd. But I don't know if you have anything to say about Tatooine, because your knowledge of Eastern history is pretty incredible. I'm not gonna lie, that's
just
amazing.
history.
History in general.
I mean, damn.
Tatooine's an interesting one because because again you have Watto's accent. What is it? It's really hard to put your finger on. It's not like Far East. It's definitely not the West. It's not Europe. It's not the global South. It's somewhere in the near/Middle East.
I was gonna say it's
he's from somewhere in the Mediterranean or the Levant or Palestine or Persia or somewhere like that. And it's all kind of, the Tatooine is filmed in Tunisia, in North Africa, where there's a big influence from the Arabian cultures. Tatooine is also run by these big, fat, decadent crime lords who have this lavish lifestyle and like to enslave women. And we're kind of getting to some of the depictions of the Middle East that were in early films like The Thief of Baghdad, where you have the sheik type character who's very cruel and torturing people and stuff like that. And I think there is a lot of that going on in Tatooine. There's a bit of there's a bit of Orientalism to it. And George Lucas regrettably used the phrase white slavery when he was talking about selling his properties to Disney.
Yes.
And on Tatooine, there it is. It's literally the thing that people were panicked about, when they came up with the phrase white slavery. They were worried that these swarthy men from the East were going to be kidnapping their daughters and selling them or something like that. Well, I guess here it is on Tatooine.
Yeah.
The other thing I really like in Tatooine too is when Watto turns down the money. First of all, I love how audacious Qui-Gon is.
Yes.
Here's a guy who looks like a Jedi. He looks like a Jedi so much that a child asks if he's a Jedi.
Right.
He's pulling along with him an alien that no one's ever seen before, and a woman who is clearly an aristocrat in a very bad disguise, so much so that A child again asks her if she's an angel. She stands out that much. And Qui-Gon shows up and says, "Yeah, so I need the transmission for a Rolls Royce, and I would like to pay you in Bitcoin." And like, Watto's just like,
we don't accept
no,
Bitcoin.
No, none of that.
You take NFTs?
No. That's not. Or Watto's just like, who does this fucking guy think he is?
Literally. That's kind of
Qui-Gon is banking on just being able to brainwash somebody and have them do whatever he wants.
Yes,
he's
right.
Like he didn't think this went through.
Hubris of the Jedi, if as it were.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Mind tricks don't work on me.
It's interesting that that Watto also says, like, I need something that's more real.
Yeah,
we're far out enough for so they don't want to take the Republic's currency on Tatooine. And there's like a lot of possibilities. There could be a financial crisis, and the currency could be really overinflated. Or it could be that because the Republic is just fine with with Tatooine being run by a criminal syndicate, that they have to launder their money, and you can't do that. You can't do that with data currency. You have to have something physical.
Sure.
And so everyone has to be on whatever Hut coin is.
Oh, it's just like
fun, maybe.
Yeah, nice. It's just weird to think, that there is so much to pull from this movie thematically, and I guess you've done a really good job with analyzing each planet. What would you take on Coruscant then? Because Coruscant's like a weird hybrid.
Yeah, well,
Coruscant
is there's your Imperial core.
Yeah, it's capitalism too.
The whole thing with trade and outlying systems. The outlying systems are there, just like when empires on Earth expanded in the 16th century. The reason that you control those outlying systems is so that you can funnel all of the wealth back to the center.
Back to you, yeah.
So you've got to either do trade with them, or if you can get away with it, exploit its resources by, again, if you can get away with it, exploiting its people, extracting all that wealth and sending it back to yourself. And Coruscant has all the wealth that a galaxy can supply is concentrated in this city. So many people can live there. It has all of these, lavish entertainments and this huge melting pot of cultures that have all come there to do business. And it's the thing that makes the taxes on trade. Like, why is this such a big deal that the Republic is, as it says, in turmoil over it? Well, like, taxes on trade are, tariffs. We heard a lot about tariffs in the last, 4 years or so. It's a form of protectionism, so that, or a way for the federal government to raise money, or as a way to try and correct a perceived trade imbalance. And we started doing this, or the empires of Earth started doing this because other empires were also going out and doing the same thing with colonies. But you didn't want your stuff to be getting out anywhere else. You wanted everything to be coming back to you. So you use tariffs as a way to restrict trade, because I don't want Spain getting their hands on my money. Unfortunately, I do have to do business with them sometimes because they have most of the sugar. And tea is really bad without sugar. And I've just acquired all of this tea from the East India Company, so I need the sugar to go with it. But I'm going to try and punish the people who supply it as much as possible.
Yeah.
And but this went out of favor because you had the liberal thinkers of the 18th century who came along, who started spreading the idea that individual liberty, was moral and good, and actually the best way of doing things politically, was representation, and revolutions happened. But it also happened to economics. You had Adam Smith, and Herbert Spencer and David Hume, who were saying that, all of this restricted trade is not actually for the good of everyone. What we need is a free market where all of the players have equal access and everyone is acting in their own rational self-interest. This will maximize utility, and we will call it, I think it's pronounced capitalism.
Okay.
And
we couldn't correct you, so I think you're good.
after capitalism becomes very big, free trade is kind of the thing.
Yeah.
And so presumably the Republic is also on a capitalist economic system.
Yes.
So introducing tariffs. Yeah, introducing tariffs is going to be something that people don't like. Because the Trade Federation, it says they're greedy, so probably this tariff means that it's cutting into their profits. Someone, maybe someone on Naboo was saying, this deal that we have with the Trade Federation, it's the worst deal I've ever seen. And some people are saying it to us. I'm not this kind of guy, but some people are saying you just can't trust the Trade Federation. You just can't trust them. They just want to fuck us up.
This sounds like you're writing an episode of the Clone Wars right now. It really does.
But yeah, so the Trade Federation is not content to only make lots of money. They want to make all of the money.
Yeah.
And so this new tariff that they have to deal with, shipping things to Naboo, they've taken to be egregious enough for them to actually form a blockade, to actually wage war on Naboo.
It's just interesting because this kind of analysis I have not heard anywhere else. I'm going to be honest with you, Peter. You kind of delivered this on a really awesome level because, you watch these movies and yes, there's a lot of fun and silly things to it, but I don't know. You get a lot about it. You get a lot of it, subconsciously. And then it takes a lot of, mapping of what's it relating to, how does this tie into my life, and how does this tie into the world history? And it kind of all, like you said, it kind of all builds up to this realization that it's not just a movie for kids. Like this was one part movie for kids, but it's also one really deep thematic analysis.
You can't possibly understand it if you're a kid. You don't know what tariffs are. You don't know.
No.
You understand the fun like lightsaber battle or the the blasters and stuff, but no, not the.
But no,
I did not know
the whole thing about forcing the Naboo to sign a treaty, is what the plot hangs on. Can the Trade Federation capture the princess, who is the executive leader of Naboo, because their political system requires them to elect a 15-year-old girl for some reason, and force her to agree to unfavorable economic terms with them.
Yeah.
And can they do that before they get caught? That's what's happening.
You got Palpatine working both sides too, which is really clever.
Well,
right?
It's so just like in colonial India, you had the East India Trading Company was running the country. They had 3 or 4 provinces in India that had governors, and one of the guys was the governor general, and it was his job to report to the crown, to the head of state. And the other title for that guy is viceroy.
Oh, okay.
So that's the viceroy's job is to communicate. Then since this is kind of the thing, is the viceroy's job is to communicate with the chancellor, which is why is Congress not doing anything about it? Because it's the chancellor's job to communicate with the viceroy. The chancellor, instead of going himself, because it's a war zone, has sent Jedi. And that apparently was not what the Trade Federation wanted. And it lets you know what the Jedi are like right away, because they are pissing themselves, frightened that these psychic murder machines have been sent to negotiate with them.
Yeah.
Psychic murder machine is my new favorite way to describe a
already
Jedi.
going very badly. They sent Jedi.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
That's a good point.
There's a lot in new canon, I believe, that is really true. Like those Queen's Peril books. they really go into sort of they're really trying to bring more of that real world politics into it, kind of a thing. And really just like, if you're like interested in the 15-year-old queen, all that kind of stuff, they really kind of get into why their system is set up like that and different things. It's very interesting. But just even there have been things that like talking about Coruscant being like, this is the center of capitalism. You've got and literally in the Clone Wars, I love that you find out the rich are literally living on top of the poor.
Yeah.
And everything too. You know, like you've got all the people in the lower levels and everything, and it's an even the planet itself is like of course you got all the wealth coming to the core, but then even on that planet the wealth is coming to, you still have we still have people under our feet. You know.
Yeah, there's kind of this Victorian London thing going on.
Yes.
Yes. It is very much so that. That's why I love the story of the Martez sisters and stuff in the newer episodes of Clone Wars and everything. Yeah. But just there's so much fascinating things going on in there, and you don't know how it really is funny how people are like, oh well, the prequels are more for kids, but they are 100%. There's so much political, all kinds of just jargon going on in there that is just It really does. Again, I was a 12-year-old. I loved the movies. Everyone I saw, I saw the Revenge of the Sith the year I graduated high school and everything. But still, I still am watching them going, oh, okay, that's why. Okay, so this is like, that connects to that, and this is okay. Like, I'm still learning things watching these movies and stuff because there's just... George went so many levels.
Well, I was thinking that too. Like, this is the first one that brings science into Star Wars, and like thinking about it from a scientific perspective, right? The Force, they bring midi-chlorians being something found within you. And I do a whole episode on this, Peter, and I don't want to bore you with it, but I can tell you this much: I think midi-chlorians to me are probably one of the smartest things ever included in Star Wars, because midi-chlorians allow you to think about the microorganisms that make you up, right? And every fraction of there's over 15 trillion small things that run the bigger you, right? And I love that idea because, you see this entire movie when symbiotic relationships do work and when they don't work. When they do work, you get people like Jedi, right? You can hear the will of the Force. You can hear the nature of these things telling you what you should and shouldn't do. But then you go to Naboo, and these people have cut off symbiotic relationships so much that they cannot work with the locals, the people that were there originally, right? Because then it becomes a political thing. It goes from being something that's scientific to being political. And then now we've got a really cool theme that comes up where it's got something so natural versus the battle droids, which are so artificial, right? It's just these huge concepts that I don't think Star Wars really ever touched on. I mean, it may have in the original trilogy, but not quite as deliberate. Because you watch these movies and it's there, but like you said, you've got to do the research yourself to kind of tear this apart and see this,
Yeah, the other thing about the prequels that you just reminded me of is that because of the battle droids, in a way, that was the thing that made me realize, the Republic does have slaves. They're just droids.
Yes.
Droids are very clearly people.
Yes.
They have their own thoughts and their own emotions and their own motivations and everything else. Like, even the battle droids do. And the battle droids are very, very overtly slaves that are being made to fight. And R2-D2, everyone's favorite, is straight up just a mechanic who's most of his friends get killed trying to repair a ship to escape the other droids who are shooting at them.
Go ahead and put that up there.
But also,
that was the first time it was really clear to me. It's just like, because Padme is shocked that there's still slavery. It's like, Padme, you own people. Like,
yes,
like R2-D2 is a possession of yours.
Sure.
Yeah.
And also, Anakin making a person, right? Slaves owning slaves is an even weirder theme that you don't really see picked apart.
Droids are actually even lower than most other sentient beings.
Yes, like literally, like a Womp Rat might have a better life than a droid, right? Because they can, they have a free will. They can choose what they want to do. Whereas you've got a droid who is literally programmed by someone saying, no, you are going. This is your destiny. This is your job. You're gonna.
Also, man, Watto is really just not paying attention, is he? Like, this kid is made a robot. He's building a race car behind his apartment building.
Yeah,
and
it's slave quarters.
Somehow Watto has not found out about that.
Nope. God, it's hilarious.
Like,
and then,
it's cool.
But they got the slave community there on Tatooine as well. And then here comes this strange man. This is very much a Native American kind of an allegory there. You got this strange guy who comes and draws your blood for magic. And it's just I think about that. How did Shmi say that?
I've never heard it put like that before, but that's awesome.
Well, how did Shmi justify that? Here's this strange guy is going to come and pinprick my son and take his blood.
I don't think he told Shmi.
No, that's even weirder.
She wasn't around.
And then she was
your blood for infections. Oh, okay,
and then
cool.
She's fine with letting him go off, right? I mean, that's another weird idea there.
Well, and even more so, Qui-Gon is fine with just fucking leaving her there.
That's the weirdest part.
Just see ya. Good luck with all this. Now that I've taken away the only thing that has meaning to you in this terrible, awful place.
Oh, man.
Yeah, it's crazy.
See, before, because we've only got about a few minutes left here, Peter, but I want to say something that I've heard on a different podcast. I think Blast Points have talked about this. One of my favorite things is they talk about Clegg Lars and Attack of the Clones. Now, this is real random, but how Clegg Lars is he's sitting there with his little, his just amputated leg. He's like, I'm going to go back out there whenever what's his exact phrasing, Jerry? It's
I can't go until I heal, is what he says. You lost a freaking leg, dude.
You can't. You're not just going to take a breather and go back in there, man. Some more serious stuff has to happen first.
Talking about real world things, though, that is very much almost like the pioneers or the Old West and the indigenous peoples and stuff, right?
Yeah.
With them and the Sand People, you have that very much brought out in that first episode of the second season of The Mandalorian. And stuff. That felt like such a Western, man.
Oh, it was so awesome.
It was amazing. I loved how they portrayed the Tusken Raiders as they were. It was just people where we've been this whole time oh no, they'll kill you or whatever. And even in that, talking about Klieg Lars, he talks about Klieg Lars goes, they're vicious, mindless monsters. They kidnapped his wife. But still, it's just very much listen here, dude, calm down.
That's hilarious.
Well, it's they're called sand people, and whenever you put a qualifier in front of the word people,
it's not a good sign.
It's very clear that you don't think that they're people.
It's not a very good sign. No.
Even Padme is that she gives Anakin a complete pass after he does this.
Yep,
because he was upset.
You don't think she was a little scared that he might do that to her too, though? Maybe she was like, okay.
Should I do with this guy?
No, I'm sorry. That's terrible.
That's brilliant.
Well,
Peter,
go ahead. Sorry.
I had a blast
thing where that's like you give the guy the crazy guy at work a piece of candy or whatever, just to make sure don't kill me, okay? You're good. We're good.
But
anyway.
Peter, I wanted to say thank you so much for coming on here, man, and doing this. I want to ask you now. Not we're going to invite you back every month, but would you be able to do the same exact kind of analysis with Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith? Because I would love that. You kind of opened my mind.
I don't know if you can do the same kind of analysis on Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. It's so unique to the Phantom Menace. This kind of the world building doesn't happen quite in the same way.
Right.
Yeah, exactly, chat. He was angry. It's literally genocide.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if you can do it as much with Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. They're very different. They're very different movies. Like they don't.
They really are.
Because the Phantom Menace, it has a lot of vocabulary that if you know what it is, you know what's going on. Sure. And I don't know if that's the case for Attack of the Clones or not. I feel like there's a lot less of that going on there.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, all I wanted to say too is the fact that you could tear apart this movie that is meant for kids, you know, and like George says, but you know, there's an underlying factor there that it's not really meant for kids. Like this is meant for everyone to see, and I think George knew that writing it, and I really enjoyed this. Jerry, what do you think of all this? Do you think it was kind of fun?
I think that this is my headcanon now, that it wasn't the Tusken Raiders at all. That it, I think Klieg Lars is a Black Widower. I think there's some foul play afoot. That's my headcanon now. I blame Klieg Lars for Shmi's death, not the Tusken Raiders. So
they didn't do a damn thing. Well, Peter, thank you so much, man. I don't know if you want to plug your Twitter or anything, what you got going on, but I
don't have anything to plug right now.
Perfect. Well, look.
Except for Samasa, you're a great follow. I'll say that.
Yes.
Like, Pete's a great follow. So go follow him on Twitter, if you will. So.
Yeah, I'm Townley Peter on Twitter if you want to yell at me.
If you want to enjoy it, if you want to, get content like this, you can always follow Peter. You can always, if you need to get this right here as well, we've got Paul. He's signing some Bombadcast CDs. Now, Peter, we usually have guests interpret art. How would you interpret this? And would you call this art?
I would. This is like not the Smash Brothers reveal I was expecting.
It's something, isn't it?
Yeah, E3 was weird this year.
What about a Shifty Eye from the band? Sing it. What's their damn song? Butterfly. Oh my! No, he sings "Starry-Eyed Surprise" and "You're My Butterfly Sugar Baby." What do you think of this art we've got?
Yeah, man, I can't remember the name of that band either. It's gonna bug me now.
Oh, I'm gonna look it up.
I keep looking for George's hands on his shoulders, though.
Crazy Town.
Yeah, he's really working a knot out back there.
He's helping Shifty Eye's back pains from his tour with Crazy Town. It's Crazy Town. So, but remember, enjoy the Bombadcast. Willie loves it. Every Monday we've got Hyperfocus with Jerry Cable. Great discussion show. Every Wednesday you've got me. Yeah. Bombad Gaming. We'll be doing Lego Star Wars whenever we come back from our family trip.
I finally quit the pipe. So that
did you?
Hyperfocus goes. Yeah, it goes a lot
good, a lot
easier now. A lot easier. Less coughing. So
and per our friend Michael, who has a great podcast, All Remaining Systems. I don't know if you know this, but Jabba's Palace became a retirement community in the Jedi Prince novels. So here's some images.
Part two of us going through the Jedi Prince series is coming soon, guys.
It definitely is. But with all that being said, every guest, Peter, says this phrase. They say the phrase "Stay Bombad." So if you don't mind, before we wrap this evening's show, can you give us a good "Stay Bombad"?
Stay Bombad.
Stay Bombad. Peace.
or Bombad.
Anyways, my broskies, I gotta bounce. Bounce on your boy's dick. Hey, got him.